If you really want to understand Don Bosco, you need to understand something about the heart of God. St. Augustine famously said that the human heart is restless and will not be at rest until we rest in God. And von Balthasar said that God's heart is restless and God will not be at rest until we rest in God. And it is this restless heart of God that goes in search of humanity who wanders away and needs to be saved, that gives us an insight into Don Bosco. Because God begins by sending his Son to us to save us. And the Son gives us the Spirit. So the Son and the Spirit become the two arms of the Father that embraces us and brings us back to God's heart. And all this movement, this mission of God, is what Don Bosco is called to enter into. So that the mission of Jesus, the good news that he came to proclaim, continues to be proclaimed and lived in our day. And you and I are also called to enter into that mission of allowing Jesus to live in us and love through us, to become the good news. Don Bosco, at the age of 9, had a dream, which was to set the way in which he was to proceed, the course of his life. He dreamt that he was in this field, and this man appeared. And suddenly he saw all these boys fighting. And he went in to stop them, but he couldn't stop them, and he began to join in the fighting. And then the man said to him, No, I will give you a teacher how to change these boys, who had turned into wolves at this stage, into lambs. And that moment, this lady appeared in the dream with a mantle full of stars. And he said, Who are you? And she says, I am the lady that your mother asks you to pray to every day. I will be your teacher. And I will teach you that it is through gentleness and loving kindness that you will learn how to deal with these young people. And then he awoke from the dream. That dream would reoccur for him throughout his life. But even when he was ordained, he wasn't quite sure, he wasn't clear about what God was actually calling him to. And so he went to this convito college. It was like a pastoral college, where for 3 years he did pastoral work and reflection on the pastoral work, and he had the experience of working in the slums of Turin. And it was during that experience that when he used to visit the prisons, he became very upset because a lot of these young people ended up back in prison again and again, and they had no hope. And some of them actually were hung for their crimes. And so he said to himself, if only these young people had someone to take care of them, to look after them, if they had a friend, then their life could be so different. That stayed with him. And then it started very simply. He was in the sacristy after Mass, and the sacristan was trying to get rid of this young boy. And Don Bosco says, hold it a minute, he's my friend. And he got into conversation with him, learned he was without work, he was homeless. And so through the conversation, he began to recognize that God was speaking to him through this young person. He didn't need a vision. He didn't need anything extraordinary. Here was the very beginning, the small step of fulfilling that dream that he had of 9 years of age. And so he began with this young person, and soon it became more young people and more. And he had what was called an oratory. An oratory in those days for him was games, fun, excitement, but also catechetics and time for prayer. But he actually had no place to meet these young people. And so they had to go to different places throughout the city. And eventually he ended up with a shed, which was on the outskirts of Turin. And he began his work from there. But it was too much for him. And after a year or two, he had a bit of a breakdown. He had to go home. And when he came back, his mother came back with him. And his mother helped him with the work. And then he realized when he was doing this work that he couldn't do it all on his own. He needed help. And so he had a lot of lay people helping him. And some of the young people who were in the oratory began to say they want to get involved in the work as well. And those teenagers became the first members of the Salesians of Don Bosco. And he called them the Salesians of Don Bosco after St. Francis de Sales, because in the dream, if you remember, he was told by Our Lady that he would win hearts by gentleness and loving kindness, which is the essence of the Salesian charism, gentleness and loving kindness. By building up friendship with these young people, he was helping them to understand that they were loved and loved by God. But we cannot bypass the human. He says to us, Salesians, some of these young people will never read a gospel, so you need to become the gospel that they will read. And that is the message for each one of us. If we truly believe in the good news that is Jesus, if we truly believe that we have received the good news, then we are invited and called to become that good news for others. For whatever you do to the least of my brothers or sisters, you do to me. And mercy, kindness, and love, and gentleness are the essence of what Don Bosco came to proclaim among the young, because it is the basis of the good news. Wishing you every grace and blessing. God bless.